that's all, that's
Up
you
comes
do.
all the deal on the salvage stuff at that point. from
That's the
there
salvage
on
to
out.
the end, ain't it?
Yeah, it's that till the end,
All right.
so, but there's Dan's slide.
Which one?
I got you a nice pretty slide, you're all nice and pretty, okay? Folks are gonna wander in as this progresses, so, be prepared for more show up as we go. Between parking and finding us, you know, they're gonna be late, it happens. My name is Matt Beebe, I'm Sergeant with the Polk County Sheriff's Office, I'm just finishing 24 years in law enforcement, I've got one more to go before I can start my thing, unless I go and do something else. With that said, mental health is something I've been doing for a little while, but if you had asked me back in '89 when I started that this is what I'd be doing, I'd tell you something. Fraud had just started really coming in heavily because of those newfangled thing called fax machines. So that's where I thought my career was going to take me. This is where my career is now. Okay? Give you Greg Pollock.
I'm Greg Pollock, I'm a detective with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. I've been dealing with all of that probably since about 2002 when I went to the detective section. We saw a need for it. And we saw the real spike in 2006. I'm also the Vice President of Florida Law Enforcement Property Recovery Group, which comprises of 450 law enforcement officers, law enforcement detectives, community training every year. Max, the secretary now?
Yep, I'm currently secretary.
And I've had about 17 and a half, 18 years of law enforcement experience.
I'm Detective Dan Henson, Tampa Police Department. I've been with the Tampa Police Department right at 24 years. For the last 10 years, I've been ended up inadvertently doing metal theft just because most of the subscriber were in my prescribed zone of control. For the last 3 years, I've been doing nothing but metal theft for the entire city of Tampa. The city of Tampa is taking it seriously. They increased my score by 100%. I now have a partner, so now there are 2 of us in the entire city of Tampa. I feel like the Rangers and protect 100 square miles of ground that we got. But enjoy being here with y'all. It's a very interesting field. I hope nobody feels that they get stuck in here because it's, you know, there's a garbage detail or anything like that. I find it insulting. I like to think I'm scrap and metal, not scrap. But anyway, it just sounds so much nice. But it's like catching any other bad guy or anything else. I mean, it's as big of a thing you want to make it. It's as easy as you want to make it. Selling beer cans, hundreds of millions of thousands of dollars of property loss, cell towers loss, air conditioning, you just name it. I mean, it's huge. And look, they got bridges. Look at here. Hopefully, I hope this is a real good day. The whole thing of this is we've got more time and we've got material. So unless you want to do a brief thing, I mean, I strongly encourage, and so does Matt and Greg, more stories for Finding Danny. If you have any questions, I mean, the whole idea of this class is for all of us to be on the same sheet of music. We finally got law passed last July. We got signed into law, and try to get everybody on the same sheet. So it's like this county doesn't do this, and this county does that, and this jurisdiction does that. It's one law for the state of Florida. So hopefully we can all get on the same sheet, and everything will work good. It's just going to be better for us. Matt.
As Greg said, the concept really came into its own around 2006. Who's been working it that long, other than obviously the 3 of us? Okay. So we've got a couple that this is going to be kind of all that for you, but the rest of it is relatively new. So that's good. All right, real quick pop quiz. First one to raise your hand, tell me what this actually is. You win. Okay, what's it go to? Air conditioner. Okay. Huh? Somebody back over there said? Outside. All right. That's fine. Okay. It's a central AC unit. Okay. For us, we see that bottom center picture. The scrapyard see everything else. So when you call them and say, hey, I'm looking for a central AC unit, they're going to kind of laugh at you because that's not how it comes in when they get it. All right? Don't bother calling them about that. You can call about an ACR, what's
mic so he can get it.
Okay. How's this? Any better? Okay. Stationary is not my thing, just in case anybody wonders. All right. All right. So we're going to go over the basic history as far as why it's a problem, the different types of metals being stolen, the state laws, the problems that we face, identify how to deter the problem, and identify ways to actually combat it straight on. All right. 07 to 08, Polk County, we had 716 scrap thefts from businesses, utilities, and things. In 07, ISRI said that the industry was at $72 billion. According to the numbers I just got, last year's numbers are now at $100 billion. Okay, so obviously it's gotten bigger. Here's the problem though. Just like everything else, when the recession hit, ISRI went down too. It got all the way down to $54 billion at one point. Okay, so it comes and goes the way any normal business does. All right. 06, as I said, it got to the high point as far as getting attention to law enforcement. So I started doing some research to figure out why it's becoming such a problem. And I found out it's mostly due to China. Okay? They built a thing called the Three Gorges Dam. The Three Gorges Dam is 3 times larger than the Hoover Dam. It actually now supplies 3% of China's power. Okay? And that's for the entire country. They flooded the entire valley, took out old cities, all kinds of fun stuff. But that's when the construction boom was going and you had to buy concrete like a week and 2 and 3 weeks ahead of time to have it delivered. It's the reason copper started going through the roof, is they got to send power lines through all this stuff. Okay, and generators and everything else. Okay, and it's not even completely finished even today. All right. All right, everybody remembers the 2008 Olympic Games, right? And Mr. Phelps and all his medals. Okay? Well, we changed the law back then. Greg was a heavy hand in that. And basically, we took it from the law enforcement side and we went at it. Okay? Changed a lot of things and it should have made a difference. It did make a bit of a difference, but not as much as we thought, because this is what most people didn't see. On the day before the Olympics opened, this is what was going on. And the news coverage had the gentleman come off from the U.S. Olympic bicycle team with a mask on because the smog was so bad. Immediately, China ordered all factories within 50 miles of an Olympic venue to shut down or the owners go to jail. Okay, you can do that in a communist country. It's perfectly legal. So they shut everything down. When they shut it down, what happened?
Dust settles.
Dust settles, air clears out, everybody says what a great Olympic Games, right? Beautiful weather, beautiful people, friendly hospital. You didn't hear anything bad about anybody over there, right? I was even impressed with the opening and closing ceremonies. They used actual people, not machines and all that. It was very cool, okay? However, what it did is it backed up all those orders on the docks, so all the scrap metal sat there and it crashed the market, okay? So it went from $4 a pound down to about $1.50 for copper, all right? So while we thought the law was going to make the difference, the Olympics actually put a large dent in our crime. Needless to say, the Olympics didn't last forever and we're right back where we were. These were the tickets I was looking at the time. Can anybody tell me on the left ticket? Oh, good, I can go back to wandering. I like wandering. All right, is that better? Okay. I like wandering, it's much better for me. All right, can anybody tell me who this guy is, where he lives, what he sold, anything that would help me as law enforcement make an arrest on that case? Yeah, really nothing. I looked at this and thought I was looking at hieroglyphics, okay? Bear Bright, what the heck's Bear Bright? I had no clue, all right? So I went to some of my yards
and I got them to at least try and make a copy of a driver's license for me to put with this 3x5 card. They called it a transaction. All right? Well, believe it or not, I was able to get convictions off of this stuff. All right? It took me a lot longer, but I was able to get it done. But with the changes in '06, we'll get to that form a little bit later, there's a lot more information required as far as the video and stills and signatures and photographs of what's being sold and all that, but this is kind of why that came to be. All right. The other problem you have is at the same time, you can see that the stock market got involved. They started trading commodities and futures on copper because they saw the need. It's a rare, unreplenishable item just like oil. So they just started hawking it on the stock market. Continues to jump up the price. Our main people that are taking it are the drug addicts, homeless people, organized crimes, the gypsies. Anybody got roving people that come in to buy your scrap and then disappear back across state lines or county to county? We have one guy coming down from Tennessee to buy it and jump back over the line. Security guards. We've got plenty of people working for the water companies, stealing their own stuff and then taking it and scrapping it. I've made several cases that way. I'm sure some of you have been doing it for a while and made them too. Okay, so 2010 is all our blue numbers. And then in 2011, the law started to change. And you can see where it starts coming back down. Okay? All right, Greg?
How many people have worked metal theft cases around here? I saw a raise of hands pretty much. This is going to be basic if you have it. This is a basic on the on your ferrous and your non-ferrous metals. Basically, ferrous metals is anything that contains steel, and non-ferrous is anything that can have qualities of your copper, brass, aluminum, lead, zinc, nickel, or any of the alloys thereof. I mean, it's not subject to, and the thing is not subject to precious metals under regulations under Part 1. That's Part 1 of 538, the state statute dealing with secondhand dealers and secondary metal recyclers. Types of non-ferrous metals, we got the copper, aluminum, brass, and stainless, of course. Here's the definition. This is out of ISRI's definition of the number 1 copper. I'll let you guys read over it. It goes off the size, off the 16 gauge B&S wire gauge size, no smaller than. And then your number 1 copper also includes your grounding wire used in construction, utilities, substations, your cell tower sites, your copper tube, including your air conditioning and refrigeration. Because there's a difference between the refrigeration AC and your air conditioning lines and your water line tubing. You'll see it all marked on all different types of markings on the tubings if you actually look at the tubing, if you recover any of it. This is example number 1. You can tell, you see the bare bright, and then you see where it's all stripped from like your utility wire from out of your house, your Romex wire. Then you see the bare bright grounding wires or your bare bright wires that were already stripped and purchased. Here's your tubing. If you look at the end caps, you'll notice the red and the blue end caps on there. That's usually a good clue that the property is stolen in there, because usually your tubing guys, your AC guys, and also your people running the housing, the water lines will not sell full-blown rolls of tubing from a job site unless they're stealing it off a job site to get extra money. Your bus bars, copper bus bars, mainly found at your cell tower sites. Usually when you have a theft from a cell tower site, it's usually 4 victims, 0 or 5, because most of all the carriers share the same cell tower site. Like you go like on this site in particular, you had AT&T, you had Verizon, you had Sprint, and then at the time you still had Nextel because they were separate companies at the time along with T-Mobile. Talks about number 2 copper wire, talks about the definitions on it. This is example number 2. It's all grounding wire. You can see how the grounding wire is oxidized from being out in the weather. Here's examples of your burnt wire, which now you cannot purchase burnt wire. It's a restricted, regulated item unless you show proof of ownership, and we'll get into that later on in the presentation. Of course, car aluminum rims, we've had a rampant theft in our county on them. They're stealing car rims from the junkyards and then taking them to the salvage yards and reselling them. Your window screen enclosures is your extruded aluminum. If you see extruded aluminum on the purchase forms, you'll see your screen enclosures, your window frames. Your painted aluminum, your pan roofs from your patios and all that, and your gutters. Here's sheet aluminum. There's a couple key things on this picture here that's interesting. You see the normal sheet aluminum, but you see the second sheet there? Can anyone tell what that is? Who said boat? And also the thing about the boat, they still had the FL numbers on it. If you look at the top part of the boat, you can still barely make out the FL numbers on there, which you can research it back and find out who the owner of the boat is to see if it was stolen or if it was if the guy legitimately scrapped it himself because it had a hole in it or it was for some other reason. Those are some of the things to look at when you're into the scrap metal yards. Here's extruded aluminum. This is all found in a person's backyard because they was holding it there before they sold it after they stole it from a boat trailer manufacturer. Here's your aluminum copper radiators. And there's just a compressed of them. It's car radiators and your air conditioning units. Your stainless steel, they classified as prepared and unprepared. Prepared is maximum 18 by 36 size, and your unprepared is just whatever size they bring it into. They usually get a little bit more money if they bring it in and it's prepared. Here's stainless steel. There's all sorts of stainless steel you run across. This is basically from the citrus industry over in Polk County. You'll see a lot of theft on that. What you'll see is they'll take it in a specific items. So I mean, if you know what property you're missing from the thing and you talk to the yards, and they'll usually identify it pretty quick. Of course, your brass, your red brass and your yellow brass. Usually most of your red brass comes from your water meters and your backflow preventers. Your yellow brass is your markers from the headstone plates. Your sprinkler heads are usually yellow brass also. And that's one of the main things. The good thing about your backflow preventers and your water meters, all of them have serial numbers on them, and they're usually registered with the municipality that controls the water department. Like the city of Tampa has their own set of numbers that if you can check with them, and within Hillsborough County we can check, and they're also cross-referenced. So you can call one of the water departments, usually whatever jurisdiction you live in, they can tell you where that water meter came from. Unless it came from like a private water meter from like a mobile home park or a private water provider. And I know you got one in Polk County, right, Matt?
Yeah.
All right, Dan, you want to go over the state statute?
Actually, we're going to take a break now.
Yep.
Coffee and goodies.
All right, cool.
They set up a very nice thing over there. And if you want a bag for your thing, then they're in the box up front. Grab one.
All right, again, I'm Dan Hance with the Tampa Police Department. We're going to go over some of the laws and stuff, which is invariably going to be some of the boringer section of it. Try to go as fast as we can through it without using up all of our time. If anybody has any questions, please speak up. If you have any comments or input, ideas or disagreements, please throw them out there. I can't say it enough, and I'll say it over and over until you're tired of hearing it. But 812, 538, and the 320s, 319s is going to go through basically everything that we're going to deal with. It's just having to go through it, and a lot of it's going to be, some of them I'm going to read verbatim, and some of them I'll just scan through just for the mere fact of nobody can say that I said it wrong. Okay? As used in this section, the term, we're going to have communication services, means the transmission, conveyances, routing, voice data, audio, video, any other information, signals, cell towers, telephone substations, power substations, anything like that. Communication services is going to be your cable TV boxes that are going to be sitting on the side of the road. It's going to have cable, wire, and anything in it. It's all going to fall into this part of this section here. Communication services provider includes any person, firm, corporation, or political subdivision, whether private, municipal, county, or cooperative, which is engaged in the sale, generation, provision, or delivery of communication services. I read that one because it's going to come in more and more, as you're going to see in a second when it says communication services provider, as an enhanced penalties for the offenses that they commit. Copper or other non-ferrous metals means metals not containing significant quantities of iron, steel, including without limitations, yada yada. Electrical substation means a facility that takes electricity from the transmission grid and converts it into a lower voltage so it can be distributed to customers in the local area, and so on. Utility means a public utility or electric utility as defined in 366.02. Let me keep up with myself here. Or a person or firm, corporation, association. Utility services means, again, electricity for light, heat, power, and natural or manufactured gas or lights. A person who knowingly and intentionally takes copper or other non-ferrous metals from a utility or communication service provider, thereby causing damage to the facilities or utility and communication service provider, interrupting or interfering with the ability to transmit, commits a felony. This is a nice charge because if the guy goes in there and just tears the stuff up, you might have theft, petty theft, but you've got another charge by itself. Just messing with it is a felony all by itself. Just stealing it. I don't care if it's $20 worth of copper. If he goes in there and steals one bus bar, he's committed a felony. So that's just gravy for the goose. Just makes it go better for us, and just knowing that that's just an extra charge.
First degree.
And exactly, and a first degree felony on top of that. I mean, they really take it really serious. So I mean, you go in there and steal one ground wire, you just bought the whole show.
Part of the way that this came about was we had a case down in Mulberry where they went into a transformer station and started taking out all the grounds, and the entire city went out as a result. So that's part of how this came to be.
Exactly. We've all seen the movies on TV, the sci-fi crap and all that stuff. You can see how it can happen. You know, all of a sudden terrorists come into the United States and they attack our power grids and everything. But this is very real. It's dangerous. These people go in there, and how they do it, they'll go in there and take out these live power stations, take out the ground cables and wires and stuff. And another employee comes in there not knowing it and get electrocuted. And I mean, exactly. It's bad. So anyways, but the biggest thing of it is first degree felony and just an extra charge. If you can get it, go after them. A person, let's see what we got here. A person who is found in a civil action, which basically is what it's telling you, they can be charged and filed civilly for all the damages and everything else. The power company utilities can go through court. What's that? 3 times the amount of damages. So they can really get into the pocketbook. Personally, I feel seeing this actually happen is going to be wherever, but it's there. That the utilities and stuff can recapture their money 3 times the values. A person who knowingly removes copper or other non-ferrous metal from electrical substation without authorization of utility, again, felony of the 3rd degree. First degree, excuse me. Fixed location, okay, this is talking about your scrap yards. Fixed location means any site occupied by a secondary metal recycler as owner of the site or leasee of the site under a lease or other rental agreement providing occupation for the site by the secondary metals recycler for a total duration of not less than 364 days. Well, that's talking about in the state of Florida, when you get issued a secondhand metals recycler's license, it has to be from a fixed location. All your business has to be conducted from that location. They can purchase material from other locations and have it delivered to them, but if they're going to process it, put it in a cube, grind it up, cut it up, chew it up, or anything, it has to be done at that location. So big trouble we're having now, and a lot of people, is that since we changed the laws, a lot of, for a better term, gypsies have gone out and they've got their secondhand metal dealer license. Well, with that, they can go to the scrapyard. They don't have to show the proof of ownership because it's basically a vendor-to-vendor transaction. But at the same time, their business is listed as their backyard in a big subdivision. So when you start actually going to their house, it's like, this is not zoned for a scrapyard. There's no scrap business going here, but they're falsifying it. And our Department of Revenue for the state of Florida didn't have the ability to sit there and say, somebody needs to go check this location when they issue a license. They'll just, right through the mail. You pay for it, you do what you got to do, and they'll give you a stamp. They do not go send anyone out to check or anything. So again, if you go to these yards, you see somebody selling something, they're like, well, they're a secondhand dealer, go do the business. I've got 2 places in Tampa now, and it's literally in the backyard in a big subdivision right off Kennedy Boulevard, which is like 6 blocks from right downtown Tampa. So we're in the process of shutting them down and working with that. Personal identification card means a valid driver's license, a Florida identification card issued by the Department of Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, or an equivalent from identification used by another state. You'll see it says a passport, employment authorization issued by the United States Bureau of Citizenship Immigration Services, green card for all practical purposes. The key here is it lists all this stuff, but the bottom line is if that identification, I don't care if it's a passport, green card, or what, if it does not have their current address on it, it ain't no good. And that's the kicker right there. If they can use a California driver's license with a California address, that's fine. If they say that's my current address, who cares? That's good. But it's got to have the current address on it. So, and like I said, you're not going to find a passport or a green card that has an address on it. Purchase transaction means a transaction in which a secondary metals recycler gives consideration for regulated metals property. Regulated metals property means any item composed primarily of any non-ferrous metals. The term does not include aluminum beverage containers. As you know, aluminum beverage containers, beer kegs, that's an animal all to itself. They have to have special documentation just to have those or sell those because of the beverage companies lobby in the state. Used beverage containers, similar beverage containers, however, the term includes stainless steel beer kegs and items made of ferrous metals obtained from any restricted regulated metals property. Restricted regulated metals property means any regulated metals property which is restricted. Secondary metals recycler. Let's go back. Greg, have you gone over the list? You didn't go over the list yet, have you? Don't worry. Later we're going to go through the list. You've got the biggest change that they did last year was restricted metals, then regulated restricted metals. Restricted metals has always been stainless steel, aluminum, copper, brass, and those the non-ferrous. Basically anything non-ferrous. If you stick a magnet to it, it's ferrous. If a magnet doesn't stick to it, most of the times it's non-ferrous. There's no steel in it. Ferrous being 8 cents a pound, non-ferrous being up to $3 a pound. So just the value of it goes back and forth through there. When they made a restricted regulated material, what they did on that was they took 20 items, which basically the biggest 20 big ticket items in the state of Florida, guardrails, manhole covers, air conditionings, blah, blah, blah. And now on those there, they've changed how A, you can get paid for it, and B, what type of proof of ownership you have to submit at the time of sale, which they didn't have that before. So that was the big change there, was regulated and the, restricted regulated. Okay. Secondary metals recycler means any person who is engaged from a fixed location in the business of purchase transactions or gathering or obtaining ferrous or non-ferrous metals that have served their original economic purpose, which is a key word right there, or key statement, or is in the business of performing the manufacturing process by which ferrous metals or non-ferrous metals are converted into raw material. I like this statute and the way it breaks it down like that. Again, in Tampa, a lot of other people, we've got a lot of these places popping up, we'll buy your batteries. You know, old batteries, used batteries, and stuff like that. If they're buying the batteries to recharge them, put new acid in them, and resell them, he's a second-hand metal dealer. Or, excuse me, not a second-hand, he's a second-hand dealer. Because he's taking old parts, refurbishing, selling. That's one license. Now, any of those batteries that can no longer be charged up or junk, he's selling them as to their only value as to this statute here is the lead and the plastic, which can be recovered from it. At that point, he's a second-hand metal dealer. So we have a lot of these companies that, in fact, we just worked a case yesterday, started on it, that a big company opened up, big warehouse and everything, we'll buy your batteries. And every other scrapyard in Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa is screaming because this guy's buying them cheaper. And then when he gets a pile of them, he's taking them down. He's also paying cash for them and everything else. So it's just a mess, but we're going to go after him. He needs to be licensed. If he's going to do that, he's going to be licensed because of what he's doing. I don't know, we have a lot of battery thefts in Tampa. Anybody else have a lot of battery thefts in their jurisdictions? Going through the golf course, taking every battery out of the golf cart, these big street signs, electric signs up on the interstate that's got like 35 batteries in them and stuff like that. I mean, it's big business. A lot of batteries getting stolen. And metals are converted into raw. Okay. Secondary metal recyclers shall maintain a legible paper record of all purchase transactions to which such secondary metals recyclers is a party, electronic record in English language, thank God, of all such purchase transactions. An electronic record of a purchase transaction shall be electronically transmitted to the appropriate law enforcement official no later than 10 a.m. of the business day following the transaction. They don't want the price in it. A lot of people, a lot of the businesses complained to start with that they thought that law enforcement somehow was going to leak to their competition how much they were paying for their prices and stuff like that, and somebody was going to sneak into the system and be able to get inside trader. We don't want to know their price. It's not even supposed to be listed in it. So, I mean, so you can tell the company it's nobody's finding out what your prices are in your secret pay sheet or something, so that's bullshit. But it doesn't require. It's just the biggest cry that I hear all the time, that they're worried about it. Not required also to deliver the original paper copies. In criminal investigations, they have, I believe it's 24 hours. If you have a criminal investigation you're conducting, you need to collect the original thumbprint, the original signature paperwork. They have to keep, that documentation has to be kept on site for 12 months at a time, and they have to keep it somewhere for 3 years. And if you request it, they have 24 hours to give you the original hard copy with the thumbprint and the original signature card. Yes, sir.
So y'all know the mandatory electronic reporting was actually something that was brought up by the recyclers that we work with. And the quote was, if they can't afford a computer, then they should get out of the business. And that was from the recyclers, okay? So there are many recyclers who you will deal with that are going to do everything possible to help you. They're just looking for an even playing field, okay? Hence where we're at now also, okay, to try and give you the extra training. If you have a yard that's normally a good yard and they're not doing something right, go after them too. That's what they want. That's what they're asking you to do. They are not asking for any special treatment through any of this, okay? For us in Florida, they're not secondhand dealers and they're not pawn shops, okay? We all have our own personal opinion of those locations. From what we've been able to put together over the last several years, recyclers are the extreme opposite, okay? So get to know your yards. They're going to be doing a lot of things for you here soon.
I agree. Something I'm not a computer savvy person. I'm sure you've already caught on to that real quick. Since I have to keep looking at this thing just to operate the one button. But these programs that these people use at these different yards, I can tell you this, that I won't even mention the names of the different already made up computer programs that a scrapyard can go into to enter their information. They're not cheap. You know, a decent sized yard might pay $75,000 for just one computer program to do stuff. But it does, most of the programs, if they shop around, will do more than just the electronic reporting. They've got the programs out there that actually do their books and keep their records and do everything, and does the electronic reporting. So for them to sit there and use an excuse of, well, I'm not going to buy a program just to report to you, well, that's not the case. You can do that if you want to. I've got one small yard. They are still on a paper system, and this lady literally hand types every morning and enters this stuff in there. They do it just as old-fashioned as it can be, but you know what? They do it, it gets done, and they probably keep better records and have better video than most of the big yards I deal with. And this is just a little rat hole place, but they really do a nice job. You already know who it is. This is the form here. Sergeant Beebe showed you earlier, just not that many years ago, if any of y'all have ever been to yards and stuff over the time, it was literally a receipt with a name and stuff on it. It has come so far in helping us be able to track people down. This is not, hopefully everybody's seen one before, but it's going to have just go over it quick. It's going to have the name of the recycler's name and the street address up here. This is the approved FDLE form. It's going to have the transaction information. The person who either did the scale, paid them, is going to put their initials on there or whatever, identifying company number, date and time of the transaction. It's going to have the name of the individual with their current address, and it's going to be the current address from their ID that they're handing it to you. You know, if the guy says, this is my current address, fine. I strongly recommend a lot of yards pre-fill. They did a transaction with him a year ago, and every time he comes back in, you see the same guy coming over and over and over and over. But the bad part about it is, he's driving a different car every time. But the form shows the same car, because that's the same car he drove 2 years ago. And they just never change it. So if you talk to your yards, encourage them to make sure that all the information is correct on each transaction, because the yard itself, if they are not recording the correct information and updating it, that's false. That's keeping false records for the yard. And you can actually, if you have a yard that you think is really jerking your chain or really just not wanting to cooperate with you, you can file charges against the yard itself for failure to maintain correct records. So you might want to encourage them that. It has information on here: business, where your occupation is, where you work, business address, business phone, home phone. The yard, if the guy says, I don't work, fine. Have the yard put in their NA. Don't just leave it blank. I have a lot of yards, they don't even ask. They're like, well, I don't ask that. But just at least ask. If the guy says, I don't work or anything else, fine. This whole form, the idea of it is to try to help us. If the person is lying to the yard is completely not responsible for it. They're not held liable for it, as long as they at least make the effort by the state of Florida, says, at least ask where they work. If everything up here is a lie, fine. That's the reason there's the big statement down here at the bottom that the person signs that says, all the information I've given on this application is true and correct. I understand that it's either a second or third degree felony for false information, false identification, all this kind of stuff. And then they sign it, put their thumbprint down on the bottom. Most of my charges, I have to say, comes from this form right here. Yes, sir.
I had a case about a year ago, and I think I dropped by my state attorney's office.
Join the club, brother. I'm right there with you. Go ahead.
Which is the 9th. But there's a thing on there that says if you give false verification of ownership,
Yes, sir.
then it's whatever felony.
Right.
Okay, I charge him for 33 counts
Okay.
of false verification of ownership of the stuff that he was actually selling.
Okay.
He confessed to me that none of that belonged to me. It was given to me by some Hispanic guy.
Right.
And I extracted it for him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That in itself is false verification of ownership.
Absolutely. All day long.
My state attorney's office would not file on it simply because I couldn't prove that he stole the items. But I never charged him with that.
And that's exactly it.
Okay, is there a better way to get around that? Is education
Hang on.
part of the state attorney's
I'm all up in this, brother. Don't. Just sit down. So you have just picked the scab off my sore spot. All right, just to let you know. I have fought over this. There's a couple of things. You can go back before we got the law changed. I got Greg and BB and made calls myself. I talked to Rose and everything. There used to be the section in it, well, it still says it on the form, false identification. Okay?
false identification means
False identification.
that wasn't me.
Well, not necessarily. And because if you sit there, if you read the definition of what identification is in the old statute prior to last July, it stated in there identification with the address and stuff and like this. This guy fills out an FDLE form. This is a state-approved form, supposedly, okay? Fills it out with his Florida prison ID card, okay? Puts an address on there, and I am this close to the truth when he sits there and says, it's like 1-2 Buckle My Shoe, Red Robin Road on the Moon, Florida, okay? I mean, a totally bogus, made-up address. And sold the stuff, and the guy, I've got him on video, I've got the thumbprint, he wrote all this stuff himself, all this stuff to sell some stolen property, and I charged him with that, and they're like, absolutely not. Because as far as they were concerned, they could care less about any information or false information. It was the ID, because that was a valid state prison ID card. It wasn't counterfeit, it wasn't fake, it didn't have any information on it, but it was a real legitimate card.
One of the things
biggest problem we have with our state attorney's office is that form, the verbiage on there does not match the statute.
Well, that's true.
The statute says if it's not yours, you can't sell it. Theirs says you can't sell it unless you have permission from the
Well, exactly.
I get metal from him, and I know it's not his, I sell it,
All
I
right.
gave you permission. That form there says it's okay. The statute says it's not, but the form says it's okay, so that's what it states.
A lot of yards have changed it. Now that form, there's no place in the world now, and the three of us will argue over this, and it's, you know, we can all sit there and go to the same Baptist church if we wanted to, and we're all going to have a different idea of exactly what the interpretation is. So the three of us will sit there and squalor and holler at each other. But let me finish. I'll give you your turn.
Just want to know about a lot of the yards have taken those language out of the statute and put it on their form.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Especially scrap.
Exactly.
Anyone that has changed it.
This form, even though that was, let's just say that was the template that we used to start with. Well, this is like from '08 or something like that. What a lot of the yards have done now, especially with the electronic recording, states that they have to, it doesn't have to be in this format, but whatever they capture, they have to capture everything on this form. Now, how you put it in there, it's up to them. But this information, you have to have address, date of birth, driver's license, yada, yada, yada. Now, how you put it in there is fine. Also, they have changed it at the bottom. I've got the yards, most of my yards, almost all of them in the city, I made copies up and had them stick it on the window, right there at the pay window of the new laws. Well, but the new laws and everything else, also they've changed it on their form. They've actually put the correct wordage in there with the current statute. So if you can get a yard to do that, you're always going to have attorney's office and state attorney's office that they decide this is worthy and this is not worthy. I was told very plainly one time that I thought that's what we elected people in Tallahassee for, and that's when I went into timeout for a year and a half and couldn't get a case prosecuted for stealing gum, because I can't tell them that, because apparently it is their place to decide what they will and will not prosecute, believe me. But have the wordage changed? It's back to what you were saying. You're going to have to work case by case sometime with the state attorney's office. I've got 2 attorneys now in Hillsborough County that I work with, and I've just cried on their ear and hollered and screamed and fought until now they're leaning more towards it. So if I have any of the cases like that, I try to get them to go in that direction. Because if you just the intake attorney is going to sit there and say, and you're right, I'm not charging him with stealing it. I'm charging him with false proof of ownership. When the guy sits there and says, I made up this receipt, you know. So. They can do anything they want to, brother. I mean, that's just the long and short of it. All I can say is it's an uphill fight. I ain't got the answer for you, but just you're gonna have to get one that wants to listen to you. You gotta find somebody. Yes, ma'am. Didn't know you were part.
And you know, this is a prime opportunity because we have a Florida Recyclers Association, and I'm going to talk to you later, but you know, we came together collectively to work together to build these relationships so that we can fight together. So obviously there's problems with the form. Now most of us Florida Recyclers, we did change our wording, but you know, I can't make people that aren't members do something. You know, you can't make people do stuff. But you know, that's their personal choice, and then that's where it goes on you to say, hey, you know, Joe Scrap Dealer, you need to be doing this, and you need to have this on there for prosecution. On the other thing with prosecution is, you know, we need to come together and figure out how we can get the district attorneys to pay attention and to take this as a serious crime. On a federal level, they call it has to be sexy. If it's not sexy, they're not going to go for it. So, you know, it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem on a national level. It's a huge problem in Canada also in our industry. And if that's the conversation at these meetings, at these national and regional events, the conversation is lack of enforcement, lack of policies of the DA. So, you know, that is a mission that we need to solve. And I have talked to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General in the state of Florida. She understands the enforcement problem, not on your level, but on the DA's level. She's over that. So if we can't, I've got her ear. She promised me that if we had an issue to call her, I have her ear. So if we can collectively come together with some solutions to go to her and say, we that's, I'll talk later, but I couldn't stop.
And Rose is on the right track. I got $100 in my pocket that says, I don't care what jurisdiction you're here from, somebody at your state attorney's office does 99% of all the animal cruelty cases. There's going to be one attorney, that's going to be the intake attorney, and 99% of all animal cruelty, they do it. There's going to be one real hotshot attorney there that does drugs, and right on down the line. There ain't a damn soul doing anything about scrap metal. Okay, it's not glamorous. It's not save the poor bunny rabbit. It's not fighting the dog or killing the cat. Okay, it's not stuff that gets in the paper all the time. It's just not. It's like you say. It's just not sexy. And I've tried unsuccessfully thus far. I'm working on it still. I'd like to have one attorney. I'd like to get one state attorney that I could take out with me and drive around and show them what it is. Bring them up to speed so when I call them on the phone, they know what in the hell we're talking about. And they know this law means this, it doesn't mean that. And you don't have to have this and this for this. I mean, they gave us so many tools in our box. And then lo and behold, but we ain't got a mechanic that'll use them. So I mean, that's the part that aggravates me.
I think it's something that we can't, this group right here.
I mean, we can put them in jail all day.
Sorry,
No, yes, ma'am. What else have we got? All right, going in here, secondary metal recycler complies with the requirements. This is basically going right over the form. The metal recyclers, again, some of them look at us as their friend. There's a few yards around that still don't like the law enforcement and everything. The bottom, I tell them, as far as I'm concerned, and I know Rose is not going to like it, but as far as I'm concerned, the state of Florida has given metal dealers, they have a license to steal as long as they record and gather all the required information that the state says they're supposed to have. I'm not saying, when I say a license to steal, I'm not saying that they're doing criminal activity. But what I'm saying is, I'm not stopping anyone from buying anything. The thing of it is, as long as you get the proper documentation, the proper identification, the proper thumbprint, that allows us as law enforcement to go after this person. I mean, that's as much as we can ask for. You know, scrap yards can't be expected to do background checks. They can't verify this guy's address and stuff. You know, now we'll start looking at it. You have the same guy come in every single day with air conditioners, and like, Uncle Bob gave me this one, Aunt Susie gave me this one, Ed had this one in his backyard. Come on, you know, over and over and over and over. That's something different. And then you have to look at it as a case by case. But as long as the yards do everything, the electric reporting and everything, they're good to go. Maintain information required for 3 years. Okay, BB, I might even let you get in this. Secondary metal recycler. Purchase a motor vehicle from licensed salvage motor vehicle dealers. As far as I'm concerned, the salvage stuff, the car stuff, it is an animal of another breed as far as secondary metal stuff. BB's more versed on it than I am by a long shot. I will say this, that we've had a huge outbreak. We've been putting a lot of people in jail. The state, again, in its wisdom, has decided that they will take derelict motor vehicle forms. Have any of y'all ran against these? It's literally, you get some schmo on the road and give him, you got photo ID? Yeah. Sign here, I'm going to give you $50 for this car. It ain't his car. Okay? But he signs the piece of paper. Now, he can just go away. Now, the record driver takes his car to the scrapyard. He's got this form. And now he signs underneath it. I swear that guy signed that. And by God, they'll buy the car. I mean, it's just that simple. We've had, how many, David? How many stolen cars have we had just this year? More than I can count on my two hands. And it's, again, it goes right back to the economy, that there's people that move out of these apartments, they leave the old car in the backyard and stuff, and they come back a month later, and all of a sudden we're getting reports the car's gone out of the backyard. Well, you found where it's been scrapped. So we've been going back, and we've arrested several people now and made cases on them where there's a history of, it takes a lot of legwork. You got to go down to the Salvation Army, find the homeless guy when he comes into bed that night and say, hey, well, yeah, he gave me $50 to help him out. you know, and that's it. So, I mean, those cars are just going like no tomorrow. And unfortunately, it's sometimes a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they're ever reported, and that's past the mandatory holding period to get the clear title from the county, and those vehicles are chewed up. So a lot of that's going on. A secondary metals recycler is not liable for the seller's failure to comply with the titling requirements provided by law for conversion of a motor vehicle to scrap metal if the secondary metals recycler obtains and maintains the seller's signed statement.
Okay.
Which is?
The short version of that one is if they're buying it from a salvage yard to a recycler, as long as they fill out a form that says that the salvage yard has reported everything to DMV and they've complied with everything, then the recycler is not required to go ahead and do it again, okay? But they have to maintain that with their transaction, all right? That way we're not duplicating the work. Because every time they go ahead and they take a vehicle off the rolls, they've actually got to pay DMV to do that. So rather than pay that fee twice, it's only paid once now, okay?
Again, when you're talking vehicles, make sure everybody gets BB's phone number so you can call him. He will answer the phone early in the morning, late at night. I've got his cell phone in case you don't have that one. I'll get it to you. But because when you start breaking it down, if anybody's dealt with it, I mean, it really gets frustrating because it's like, what consists of a motor vehicle? The bed of a truck, is that a motor vehicle? It's the frame. When they get chopped up, when is it a motor vehicle? When is it just a scrap piece of metal? And there's actually definitions for everything and what has to have a title, what doesn't have to have a title, and it's insane. But that's just another thing that you're gonna have to deal with. Here we go, quick quiz. In the information we've had and everything else, good enough picture? You know? I know that's the standard picture, but I mean, this is not what we want. Obviously, these are tickets, and you'll see them, the guy standing there, and you know, you go to court, and yes, Your Honor, I can testify it was an upright walking creature that came up there and did the transaction. Can't tell you if he's black, white, got a beard, mustache, can't tell you anything. Horrible pictures. Obviously, this ain't it. Section of regulated buses. We're going to take a break, he says. There. Where? Sorry. I get. I'm done now, right?
How many people here have wanted a secondary metal recycler and inspected the yards? Completed inspection. I know Mark has. How's your experience with them at the yard? Did you find any violations? Did you cite them?
No.
Did you just give them a warning?
Yeah.
Did you go back and re-inspect them later on?
Yes.
How was there violations there the second time?
They decided not to embark in the dealing of regulated metals.
Oh, so they got out of the business completely? Supposedly. All right. The main thing about this is probably our best friend when we're going to deal with the yards, because if it's during their normal, usual, and customary business hours, we can go enter, as law enforcement can enter in there after identifying themselves as a law enforcement agency and have the right to inspect. Any and all purchased regulated metals in possession of a secondary metal recycler, and any and all records. And the main thing is the records is to inspect, plus some of the plus all the material there. The main thing with doing the inspections records, our agency's been on electronic transfer of information, electronic reporting 2 years prior to the state statute. And that is one of the best things that we found that's useful when you're going in and doing an inspection, because you can go through all their records prior, select your yard, go through there, check 30 days worth, spot check them all, and go in there and go through each and individual transaction. So you already have a list of what transactions you want to see when you go in there. That's one of the more bonus things that we've had at our yard. Because you can check, you can see if they're not reporting the date of birth, if they're leaving off the tag number off the vehicle, if they're not getting the description of it. That's one of the main things that helps us out. Plus you can see what they're bringing in, and you can see who your local repeat scrappers are that are coming into the yard. Plus, I mean, you can go walk through the yard, anything you see there, especially I like walking through there and looking for water meters, find out who brings in a high supply of water meters, record the serial numbers, and go back and go to inspection, usually make a case out of that one way or another. the hold notice. This is a little bit different on your hold notice than your pawn shops. Who's put holds on pawn shops and at secondhand dealers before? See, about everyone here has dealt with it. This is a little bit different as in the time frame and how you set it up. Upon receipt of notice, in secondary law enforcement may put it on hold. The whole thing has to be receiving the notice may not remove the property, which is the same thing as a pawnbroker. For 15 days, let's see where I lost myself real quick on here. You got the 15 days and then you can extend it no later than 15 days and extend it to no more than 45 days longer. So you can do a total of 60 days, but the first hold notice is 15 days. Then you can extend it to 45. After that, it automatically expires, unlike the pawnbroker side of it. If you put a thing on hold, they have to notify you by certified mail before they release that item. And you can also extend it on the pawnbroker side by court order. You got anything to add on that, Matt?
How many of yours actually just set it aside and release it?
Usually, most of the yards, they'll have it sit off to the side. I've had one that didn't dispose of it and it sat there for 6 months before they called me, hey, before I went to yard, hey, we still got the stuff on hold here. What do you want us to do with it? Well, per the statute is, I mean, after 45 days off the extended hold, they can get rid of it. But most of the yards will cooperate with you. 99% of the ones I've dealt with and Dan's dealt with, we deal with the same yard. They'll hold that stuff for 6 months or until court's over with. Usually I go get a picture of it, take care of it, and then we're good to go on court, but they'll hold it till after court's over and then they'll dispose of it. Or if it's in good enough shape, they'll sell it back to the victim at the prescribed price, or the victim can go through the normal process of getting it back without having to pay for it.
Which is a key thing if you have a good relationship with your yard. If it's an air conditioner that's been destroyed, it's worthless to the individual. But if you have some of the earlier slides you saw, stainless steel augers from the citrus industry and stuff like that. I had a custom built paint thing. It goes into a 1,000-gallon tank. It stirs paint made out of stainless steel. It was brand spanking new, just delivered on a pallet. They sold it right off the dock. It cost the guy $15,000 just to have this big paddle wheel thing made. And he got $200 for it at Extractor, so he bought it back for $200 and he was happy as a pig. You know what I'm saying? It's like $15,000 to have another one made.
We had a custom pond aerator made that we recovered. The only problem is the guy cut the 2 shafts off of it, so because it was perfectly balanced, they cut the shafts off of it, which was no good to him. But he still bought it back and rebuilt it and used it for it.
Exactly. So you have some good yards and stuff like that. And some of your victims, sometimes you have to shine the light on them. They're like, well, why should I have to buy my own stolen property back? And I'm like, well, you know, it's the law, you know.
Well, it's not the law. They don't have to, but, I mean, sometimes they do it.
You get a judge order, you know, and everything. But a lot
Yeah.
of times,
The bottom line here, the main thing on this one is, out of the hold notice, we cannot change it by county ordinance. You can't change it by county or municipal ordinance because in December of 2000, or December 31st was the last date you could change it, so it cannot pray. It's the preemption on here. That's one of the main things on this statute dealing with the hold notices. Because the main thing this came about was they didn't want to, for a county ordinance to put a tag and hold. Does everyone know what tag and hold is? Same thing what you do in a pawn shop, you buy it, you have to set it up for, hold it for 30 days and it'll be able to identify it. Yeah, or move it place to place.
Yeah, with the tag and hold, there were some counties that were talking about putting 30-day holds on everything. If the yards accepted it, they had to hold on to it for 30 days before they could go ahead and dispose of it. Okay, so what's going to happen? If they're in Orange County, they're coming to Polk County to get rid of it because I don't have that hold. So it's going to put that recycler out of business in that county, and everything's going to come to me. So now I'm dealing with Orange County stolen property and everything else they've got, or vice versa. Okay, so this is to standardize it across the state and eliminate that issue.
There's only one city I think that has the tag and hold, and that's the city of West Palm Beach.
Right.
She has the tag and hold over. I think TMR is located in there with the tag and hold on that. So there's a 3-day tag and hold.
It's a 3-day tag and hold,
Yeah.
And Palm Beach metals, John Fruit, so it affects them.
Yeah, there's what, just 2 yards in the whole state that's affected by tag and hold? And I think it's just a 3-day on the non-ferrous side. So
So the scrap just goes outside the city.
yeah, it goes, whatever surrounding counties, it'll go out. The exemptions, standard exemptions, these exemptions are the same as what you find in 538 Part 1, and you find it in the pawnbrokering statute. Shall not apply to your typical organizations of corporations registered in the state as charitable, fraternal, religious, civic, patriotic, school, or social. Law enforcement officer acting in official capacity, trustee in a bankruptcy or executive administrator, or receiver who has presented proof to status of secondary metals. That if a business goes out of business and you got the lawyer handling the thing and they liquidating all the scrap metal or liquidating all the building out of there, they can sell it. Public official acting under judicial process or authority who has presented proof of such status. Sale or execution by virtue of any process issued by the court. And here's the main one. This is the main exemption you'll see. All the rest you may see every once in a while, but the main one you'll see is a manufacturing, industrial, or other commercial vendor that generates regulated metals in the ordinary course of business. Now here's the main thing. Your AC businesses, they generate scrap during the normal course of business. You'll see them, they'll take the main AC unit they remove from their customer's house, they'll break it down, they'll cut the ends off, they'll separate your condensers, your evaporators, your coils out of it, and they'll sell it to the scrap metal yard. What I've told all the yards that I deal with, obtain their business license and get their contractor's number of their air conditioner licensed contractor, so they know it's coming from that business. Because the check, they make the check out to that business, because it's during the normal course of their interest. They don't make it out to Joe, the truck driver who works for the AC company, because it normally goes to the AC company business during the normal course of business generated. Is that how you handle it, Matt, over in Polk County? Yep. And you got other industries we find that do brass turnings, they do whatever type of welding businesses that they generate, your aluminum businesses that build towers for boats and all that. We have a lot of those that generate scrap and they sell it to the scrap yard. Violations and penalties, engaging in the business failing to keep records, commits a violation 3rd degree. Yeah, you got the correct one, or is this the old one? Yeah, that's right, it was. Prior to 2010 or 2011, it was, or last year it was an F1, or I mean a misdemeanor 1, changed to a felony for pattern failing to keep, and that's what the electronic reporting's for. I mean, if you go through there prior to your inspection and you see they leave off every tag number every day when every transaction they've done, that's engaging in a pattern. You see they leave off the DL number or anything else, they're engaging in a pattern. A person, the one who, if they fail to, if you've charged them 2 other times prior and they get a 3rd or subsequent violation of this, it's a felony of the 2nd degree. It kicks it up another notch. So, I mean, I've only had one where they've been charged with under the old section of the misdemeanor that I've dealt with on my inspections. There's probably a couple more that are coming soon that I'll be doing an inspection on to deal with the yard on. Matt, have you charged with the new felony on this one?
We have not charged anybody with the F3 yet.
Has anyone charged with the pattern of failing to engage to keep records in here?
I'm charged with the F when it was the
Misdemeanor.
misdemeanor.
Dan, have you done anything on that one? Yes, sir.
We had a woman that was like 8.5 months pregnant, violated everything on there, and now it's a felony. I'm not taking her to jail.
No.
We didn't. But if it was a misdemeanor, I could have wrote her an NTA, which she needed. So it's not always good.
No, but you could always direct file with the state attorney's office is what you have the option to do also.
We just waited, came back, and arrested her and replaced her. So.
It works.
Can I get everybody to speak up because we're recording it so that we can train and
Here's the false verification of ownership, what we talked about earlier when Dan went over it. If it's under $300, it's 3rd degree. If it's over 300, it's the 2nd degree. This is the main thing, especially what was brought up here. If the person can't give you a reason, or if he says he got it from Joe Smith, I got 400 pounds of #1 copper from Joe Smith, get Joe Smith's name and address and go talk to him. This is how I made some cases, and it works. Dan and I work in the same jurisdiction, and they prosecuted on it. Oh yeah, Joe Smith, well you go find Joe Smith, track Joe Smith down, I never gave Bob this 400 pounds of copper wire. Go back, arrest him, charge him with it. State attorney's prosecuted on it. We've gotten convictions on it, and it works. I mean, you just got to do a little bit more due diligence when you're following up on the investigation on it, and just go up there talking. That's like same thing with the pawnbroker statute. When you're dealing with false information on a pawnbroker form, same thing. If they say, oh, I got it from Joe Smith or John or whatever, gave it to them, you go back and interview the guy, and he says, no, you got a third-degree felony on it. You may not be able to prove the theft or the burglary or where it came from, but you can prove the false information on it, and that's one less person you got to deal with who keeps on stealing it from it. Person here's the other main one on here. A person acting as a secondary metal recycler who is not registered with the department under 538.25, which is a registration statute, commits a felony of the third degree. So if you got any shop that's not registered out there, if you see the signs, we buy cans. The battery guys. The battery guys, you see them out there. And the thing with the battery guys, they're in a quasi area there because if the battery's still good, they can fall under a secondhand dealer statute, which is part 1 of 538. And they may have to hold their stuff in our county 30 days since we have a county ordinance. Or in the city, they have to hold it 15 days before they can get rid of the battery. Or if they want to be a secondary metal recycler and they just get rid of the batteries, they have no hold, but they got to take pictures and document it where they come from. So there's a big difference on which licensing they decide to get at the time. So it makes a big difference. Method of payments, this is a new one. Well, part of it's new. May not enter access to any cash transactions excess $1,000 for regulated metals. That's any regulated metals. That's not the 20 that we have on the restricted regulated metals. You can get cash all day long up to $999.99. If it turns out that you're over your $1,000, check, and it's handed to them on site because it's a regulated metal. It's not your restricted regulated. You get any amount of the restricted regulated metals, the check is sent to their house. And then also for an excess of $1,000 has to be in the name of the seller and payable to the seller. May issue to the restricted regulated metals shall be made to the issue to the seller, or electronic payments also to the bank account of the sellers or the bank. So if the two things with the restricted regulated, you can send them a check to their house, or you can do the electronic bank transfer.
Great.
Yes, sir.
On this topic right here, I just want to say this, that just need to make sure, we had a yard in Tampa that misunderstood the 3-day, that you have to pay within 3 days. They understood it was a 3-day holding period that they would not pay, so they were crying and calling me, complaining that the competition is paying the same day, but they're waiting the mandatory 3 days to pay, and you have to make sure they understand it's not a 3-day waiting period. You just have 3 days to pay them.
The check has to be sent within 3 days.
Within 3 days. It's not you have to wait 3 days and then send it to them. So I mean, I actually had 2 different yards that had that completely messed up and were complaining and fussing about it. And I'm like, so just make sure they understand that part of it.
Here's where we go. Each check shall be mailed to the secondary directly to the seller's address. That is on file with the secondary mail stocker unless otherwise provided. Check may not be mailed to a post office box. Check shall be mailed and transmitted to the seller within 3 days after the purchase transaction. So a lot of businesses that I deal with, they'll do all their transactions under restricted regulated. End of the day, they'll print their checks, stick them in an envelope, and mail them out the following day. So 1 day. But they have to do no later than 3 days after the transaction. And apparently it's clear as day in here. Some of your shops just may have a problem with the English language sometimes.
Well, that was part of it.
Well, I can probably think I know which yard you're talking about. Good method of payment at the time, provide the time of the transaction. This is all the exceptions on here. So if your manufacturing, industrial, commercial vendor that generates and regulated metals, that's the main one. The sheriff, public officials, the trustees, your fraternal, patriotic, school organizations, they can get the check the same day. Petition for return. Here's the main thing that a lot of people get confused on here in this statute. If the secondary matter contests the identification of ownership, the other party may claim ownership and possession. Secondary report it. The main thing is report it in a timely manner, and they can go bring a replevant action. And the following form is in the statute, is the exact form they use, plus it's stated in the statute, your clerk of the court will help you assist the victim in getting their property back. That's the main thing they have on file. There's no filing fee for the victim to obtain their replevant action. And all they have to do is go down there and bring them the police report and all the other information, the full copy of the police report, and they will help them fill out the form and serve it on them. And as I said, the sheriff doesn't charge them to serve it, because normally all services to serve the business with the subpoena for court is charged, but that's all waived. And then when it goes to court, usually when a business gets served, usually it doesn't go to court. Usually, hey, what do I need to do to give this guy his property back once it's been served? And the only problem is most of the time on this, that you'll see the problem you have is the victim's property is so far destroyed, it's no use, there's no monetary value or usefulness to them except for recycling it. But on occasion you will find, we found full stainless steel props or bronze propellers at the shops where they do want it back. A lot of times the shop will pay them back because they paid substantially less than what that piece of material cost for the scrap value. Like in bronze and some of the other stuff was way far less in value. Other shops, they wanted to go through the replevant action and took the business to court to obtain their property back. Dan, is that the main thing you see? Most of the time they're just.
I've never had anybody go to court.
Go to court.
They just bought it back because it was, such a ridiculous, low amount of money versus what the prosecutor.
That's the main thing we have. I think I've had one that taken it to court.
I'm now in small amounts. A lot of yards just give it back, period. Just take it.
Yeah. Has anyone had any experience dealing with the return of the stolen property from the yards? What was your experience with it?
Not from a scrapyard, but from
pawn shop. Yeah, pawn shops are different. Some of them want to argue, and that's a totally different than the replevant action here. The pawn shop side is totally different than dealing with the metal theft side. But the part one of the statutes basically is the same way of dealing with it when you're dealing with the secondhand dealers. The pawn shops they got their own monster in 539 to contend with.
Great.
Yes.
If you got a guy with a secondhand metals license and he's got drivers that are selling on his behalf, who's the check supposed to be made out to as far as the actual person who drives and delivers, or the company, or?
What you got? The secondary metal recyclers selling it to a different yard?
Yeah, if I'm a driver for you, the license is under your name.
Should be made out to the license holder if he's selling it on behalf of that license for transfer to.
Check's cut to you as the owner.
As the owner of the business.
Okay.
Or the name of the recycling company, either or. I mean, usually it's the name of the recycling company that's on the license. Have you had issues with it over in the city?
Well, we get a lot of times where they'll show the ID or DL attached to it's going to be whoever's holding that license and not necessarily the guy who's coming in with the stuff. So just kind of have to educate them on making sure we document, who's actually driving and coming in with the stuff as well.
Yeah, because the yard doesn't know if that guy just stole a truckload of scrap from the yard and took it to no yard to sell. We've had that happen in the past too, where they're in the company truck selling ACRs selling a truck full of ACRs to the scrap yard, and you go back in there. This is when they were paying everything was cash. You go back there and talk to the owner of the business, and you're going, hey, he never had permission to go sell that stuff. So now we just generated another grand theft case from the guy stealing from the business. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how come the check is a good way to do it, or make sure it's in payment to the name on the business. Registration. Good luck getting DOR to do any assistance with this. DOR is great about registering them. Anything else for, I hate to say it, for regulation or any other assistance they can give you has been problematic with them. So I know everyone here that a lot of people I know have experienced issues with DOR. They're great to talk to get your yearly list of your secondary metal recyclers. That's the best thing they're good at. If you need to list and they have to only give it to you for your county or for your jurisdiction, Matt, you got something? I know you're gonna go into DOR also.
DOR is a very good friend of mine. No, they're not. Anyway, if you end up having a yard that has a license legitimately and they're very crooked and you need to run them out of business, the only way that DOR will revoke the license, based on the last thing that I got from their attorney, is if it's in the court order and the judge signs it, that DOR is to revoke their license. Otherwise, DOR will not revoke their license.
But Matt, don't they have the authority to do that?
Yes.
They
And they
have
got
the
the
authority to
authority
do
to
it
fine
without
them
anything
$10,000.
else, but the attorney would not specify, so this is merely speculation, okay? Big neon disclaimer. I believe that they're possibly afraid of liability and other actions on them. So that's why they're saying if it's in the court order to say revoke the license, then they'll go ahead and revoke the license, but otherwise they don't.
Who has to get the court order?
Part of the judgment.
As far as the court order, that comes down with the finding of the case. So if Joe's Recycling is found guilty and they're now a convicted felon, then as part of the sentence, like probation and restitution, you can then go ahead and mandate that DOR revoke their license for that location or that business entity.
But if they were so inclined, they could just, if they wanted to.
Yes.
Yeah, and fine them up to
DOR,
10
if
grand.
they were so inclined, and just because it says if you're arrested on a felony, basically, that you violate, but that's not enough for DOR. They want the actual conviction. For those of us doing the job every day, you know there's a big difference between probable cause and beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's where that one sits.
Yeah, and they say they can fine them up to $10,000, which I have not seen that happen
I
yet.
have never seen DOR have a fine, period, ever. Have you ever heard of a fine? And Rose has been doing this longer than all of us, so.
Here's the certain acts and practices that are prohibited. Main thing, purchasing these ferrous or restricted regular metals before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, they can be opened and processed their steel plant and all that, but they just can't be open for purchasing the restricted regulated or any metal, actually, because ferrous is in there also. So anything they cannot purchase before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. But some yards are open 24 hours. They close their gates and they're processing their steel in the back of the shop, back of the yard, with their crusher and all the other equipment they use. Another thing is any person who sells it regularly has to not transport a motor vehicle, has to be in a motor vehicle. So our lovely homeless guys on the bicycles are bringing in the beer kegs and the stainless steel radiators, turbo intercoolers, the Verizon stainless steel boxes they have on the side of the road.
But beer cans you can.
But beer cans, soda cans, they can bring in as many as they want on their bicycle and take it in there and sell it to them. And here's the main thing that Dan hit on earlier. It has to be purchased from a fixed location. Here are some other things they changed before the statute changed this last time. There was nowhere in the statute where it said the person had to be 18 to purchase the, or had to be 18 years old to sell it. That's the main thing. You also see, other than use his or other name registered at the time of sale as a business, and then is visibly under the influence of drugs or alcohol. That, I mean, there's some people in there that I question on their influence when they made their sale of their transactions on there. But the main thing is 18 years on this. Here's reasonable proof of ownership. Any restricted regulated metals listed in paragraph B, unless the secondary metal recycler obtains reasonable proof. Owner such a reasonable proof of ownership may include, but not limited to, a receipt or bill of sale. Employee or agent, contractor, property owner is authorized to sell on behalf of the owner a reasonable proof of ownership to sell the property, but is not limited to a signed letterhead dated no later than 90 days before the sale, 90 days authorizing the sale, seller to sell the property. You'll see the letters out there. I've seen a few of them. I've talked to people in other jurisdictions in the South Florida area where they get a letter, they go back and scan it, change the date on it multiple times, so you gotta be careful when they're using the same letter to sell the ACRs around using the aluminum copper radiators. You'll see they'll buy one or two from a business, and then they'll use the same letter to sell the same one over and over, sell different ones over and over. Dan?
This is a point that everybody in here dealing with different yards is going to have to deal with, and it's a touchy point to me, is that the legislature didn't actually give a definition of what reasonable proof of ownership is. It's a receipt, a bill of sale. I mean, and by definition, that could be a red crayon on the back of a Cracker Jack box. You know what I mean? It's been who's to say and make the decision what is a receipt and what is not a receipt. You know, as well as everybody in here, you've bought a boat or a tractor or something on the side from somebody and written out a bill of sale on a piece of paper or back of an envelope out of your glove box or something. I mean, you know, get a driver's license number. So I mean, there's no real definition. So if you go to a yard and they pull out a piece of paper, you know, on notebook paper, there's one yard out in the county that actually has a pad right there. They say, well, you need to write us a receipt. Well, they write a receipt on the steno pad, and that's what they use. But if you can work with the yard, at least try to get some information that I bought it from Susie, sold me this at this address. At least even with a piece of paper, you can still go back to this person and say, you bought this from Susie. Well, who's Susie? And if they can't give you this information, I don't know who Susie is, you can still go back around the tree and charge them with false information to a second-hand dealer. It just takes more legwork. Even though it's a bullcrap piece of, like I said, a Cracker Jack box receipt, you can still use that. You can either say it is legitimate or it's not legitimate, and depending on your state attorney. But by statute, it's a chargeable offense, and it's a good felony charge.
That's the same thing to go with a letter of 90 days. Get the letter, the signed letter, and go after call the contractor and ask him if he sold it. Yes, Rose.
We developed a form. We developed a form in the state of Florida through our association and our relationships, and I do not have it on the Florida Recyclers Association.org website for a reason, because I don't want non-members to get it, and we don't really have we don't have passwords for that because it costs a lot more money to set up, to be quite honest with you, and then I would have to babysit it, so I have a lot of other things on my plate. So I will have my business cards, and you have Matt and you have Greg. I have it. I can email it to you. What we did is a proof of ownership form. I think Jacksonville was the only one that doesn't like it, but I forgive Kelly. And the back of it is every list, every item that we could possibly think of that would fall under the 20 restricted items. So just because it says utility copper, well, this is this, and this is what an aluminum bus bar and that. So we tried to do every single item. So please get with me. I'll be glad to email you the form. Then you can take it to your jurisdiction, see if you approve it or not, and then you can share it with the dealers in your, and then it's more of a you know, a format that's easy, you know what you need, and then that'll help you with your inspections and stuff.
We're getting into restricted regulated metals. You want to go and continue? All right. Yep, the main thing is manholes are pretty common. They come in all shapes and sizes. You'll see them, a lot of them, if you see them in a yard, you'll see exactly, they'll have the municipality marked on it. You'll see the sewer grates, you'll see, and a lot of them are all different shapes and sizes. And a lot of times we've seen in the yards, we've seen what the sewer, the manhole cover sits on being sold to the shop too, along with the manhole cover. Which one?
Jake, you want to talk about your case?
Back in January.
Come on to the microphone.
Come on up front.
Back in January, Poinciana area, unincorporated Polk County, Osceola County also, had 167 manhole covers taken. The guy went out, he was disguised as a utility worker, would put a hard hat on, traffic vest, the whole deal. He went out, picked them up, started taking them to a scrapyard. He had a legitimate business. was running it through the business. The yard thought it was kind of weird, so they started calling us, but we didn't have a report of a theft until about a week later. We got the report of the theft, did the scrap theft alert. Within 45 minutes, I had a phone call saying, this is your guy. Ended up trying to go find him. The funny part is the victim released a media release with that they had all these manhole covers stolen. The guy just happened to be sitting there at dinner watching the news and took off. We ended up getting him. He admitted to the whole thing. All the covers were recovered and sold back. The victim actually bought them back. But that was the third case in Point Siena I've had in a year and a half, and the biggest one, 167. So, what's that? Funniest part about it was during the interview, the guy came off of everything. He actually said that while he was out there the last day, the day that the theft was reported, he was out there stealing more. And a reporter came to him and asked him if he was out there replacing the covers that were stolen. And that's when he said, no, yeah, that's what I'm here for, and took off, and that was the end of that. So that one was a pretty good one, but it was, thanks to the yards, they helped us out with that. Yes?
He was selling them under his business, with the nature of his business, the business would have manhole covers?
He was,
Like a carpenter?
he was masonry, asphalt, concrete. His story was he did parking lots and private businesses, and this was part of the deal, that he, doing the asphalt and all the layering, that he sold these, and these were replaced. And they kind of caught on, they just felt something wasn't right, so they were buying them, but they were telling us, hey, something's not right with this. So it did take a week before the theft was reported, because that area is just very undeveloped. The roadways are in, the utilities are in, no houses, nobody travels the roads, so. 167, and all of them were recovered. So.
Who was the victim?
Toho Water Authority. So, that's it. Thank you, Phil.
The main thing,
Show and tell for today, thank you.
the main thing about manhole covers, in the restricted regulated list, everything's in clear language. A manhole cover is a manhole cover. Any electric light pole or other utility structure, fixtures, wires, hardware that's readily identifiable as connected to utility structure. You can see in the one picture here with a Chevy van with a light pole on it, that was down in Metro Dade. That was done probably in 2006 or 7. The guy rolls in and they have him on the news going in there trying to sell the light pole attached to his nice GMC or Chevy Astra van, selling it in there. So, I mean, people will do anything. And his claim was he found it on the side of the road, knocked down, and it was sat there for 2 weeks, and so he decided to take it to the scrap yard. That was his story on that one. You go to Guardrail, nice fine gentleman in his Ford pickup truck selling a bunch of guardrail. We've had it taken before. I mean, I think every jurisdiction has dealt with someone stealing guardrail at one time or another. Street signs, traffic signs, signals, and any of its hardware. I mean, I've been to a few yards where they've been buying it, but they're on contract with the county, and they have the letter in the contract to authorize to purchase it. Communication equipment, this gets, there's a lot of different communication wires, distribution, service wire, utility, including copper and aluminum bus bars, connectors, and grounding plates. So if you look over here, we have a lot of the communication wire. Here's a prime example of the communication wire for the cell tower sites. You take a look at it. You can also track this stuff down pretty good. If you look at it, you have the feet markings on it. It'll tell you the brand, when it was made, And what you can do, if you know if you find the other piece of it at the job site, you can match it up from the theft, from the footage markings. You can see the cutted markings and also contact the manufacturer, see who they sold it to, and usually they'll tell you right off the bat who they sold it to. Same thing with your communication wire. This is probably, should say on here, it's 24 pair, 25 pair communication wire. It's Superior Essex. It shows it was made on 8/21/2011. It tells you the size of the wire. It shows you with a little phone symbol. It was the phone wire, and it shows you your footage markings. If you look here, and then at the other end, you have your other footage markings. We've tracked this down where they cut the telephone pole wires and tracked it down and matched it up on the casing size before. Yeah, a lot of times you'll find it where they'll strip the casings off. You can find this, we found strip casings at the dump sites where they dumped them off, and we was able to match it up that way too and get an idea on where it came from. This the smash one that you got? Which one's this one, Matt? You're more familiar.
Can anybody tell me what this one is? It's the top left picture if you can't actually see me. Well, top left for me, top right for y'all. Okay, cell tower cable. Okay, it's also known as waveguide. Okay, now, Rose, if you bought this, what would you call it?
Restricted.
Okay, but on your ticket, what would you call it?
We call it tower cable.
Okay. A lot of other people just call it number one, and it's gone. Okay, this stuff is extremely expensive. All right, so that's why you have 4 different terms for the same thing. Let alone if we get into jelly wire, that's a whole nother issue. Just be aware of it as you go along.
This is a small example of your bus bar. You'll see it usually 18 to 24 inches in length, probably 6 inches tall, and I have 1,000,000 holes in it for when they ground all the wires from the cell tower sites. Talk about the other regular funeral markers and funeral vases and historical markers. They're all made out of brass or bronze. You'll see it listed there. They're usually, I don't think, there's special places for people who steal funeral markers and funeral vases. And there has been yards that have bought them in the past and have bought multiples of them.
However, we just had a scrap of, anybody from Volusia County here? Were you guys involved with the vases?
Yeah.
The scrap left stuff alert, did that help you?
Sanford PD had called us prior to getting the theft alert, but we did get it. They weren't stolen from our county, they were just sold.
Yeah, but they were sold in your county.
They were what?
They were sold in your county.
Yes.
So you guys got the call, right?
I'm sorry.
So you guys got the call, you guys arrested them, right?
Yeah, we got the warrant for that.
Okay, so the word about it, my point was, somebody was stupid enough to steal them. And then the word was out, so, and we know what the law is of being restricted item. So, you know, what I'm really trying to say is, so it's working.
Yeah.
You know, the law's working.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry.
No problem.
That was just sweet, and we were on Orlando something. You have job security.
All right, railroad equipment. This is, road equipment is included but not limited to tie plates, signal housing, control boxes, switch plates, E-clips, or railroad tie junctions. The main thing is this piece right here. I'll let Matt explain it since he always explains this on the railroad equipment side.
Again, bottom picture to you, it's the right-hand side. Anybody have a guess what the railroad company calls this? Okay, signal. Their slang term is chicken head. It looks like a chicken head. Okay, but this is 4 signals. It actually ties to the line, and then the line goes all the way back to the box so that they know to go ahead and move the tracks and all that fun stuff, make sure the train doesn't derail or go head on into something else. Care to guess about how much this is really worth in the scrap world? Yeah, a couple bucks if lucky, okay? But they'll go ahead and they'll sell them. by going out and showing the yards in my county this, they all know to look out for it. The rest of the wire is just kind of standard. But when this shows up, they pick up the phone in a heartbeat and call us and go, hey, listen, I got chicken heads in here. And I know it's chicken heads bringing in chicken heads. So it's all good, okay? So it's always good to work with them.
On the railroad iron, railroad's going to kill me for this, but this is really the truth. You know, the railroad owns right of ways, and so they're going to repair a track like maybe next week or 3 months or 6 months or next year. But they'll send out their little cart guy, and he's going to put out all those plates, and he's going to put all out the spikes, and he's going to put all that little stuff that is on his order for him to pull out. Now, he doesn't have any control over when they're going to actually get there fixed. Okay? So people think that if it sits there long enough, it's abandoned and it's for anybody to take. So you have people that come in with 5-gallon buckets of spikes and plates, and you know, it's obviously a red flag because according to the railroad, everything belongs to the railroad unless proven otherwise, and that's pretty much a standard thing. You know, there are railroad contractors out there that that's what they do. You know, that's what they do. Everything is, you know, it's who they are. That's what they do. They're going to have railroad. But no one else is going to have a railroad track, okay? So that's just supposed to be common knowledge. So, you know, you need to be aware of that. But the railroad is their worst enemy as far as leaving material laid out, and that's why it gets taken.
Good, on to the next one. Restricted remedy is any item that is obviously marked upon reasonable inspection with any form or name, initials, a logo of governmental entity, utility company, cemetery, or railroad. It's pretty self-explanatory on that. Then here we are, the ACRs, aluminum copper radiators or coils, evaporator cores, its tubing rods, air conditioning or heating, excluding coils from a window air conditioning unit or heating units from motor vehicle heating or air conditioning units. If you look, you got the one picture of the aluminum copper radiator on the right, and then if you look in the back of the fine Lexus right here, you see he is loaded up with a whole trunk full of them. Which at that point in time, he didn't have to, it wasn't a restricted item. Now it currently is. Then of course we got 11 and 12. 12 of course is a beer keg. 11 is your stainless steel container or bottle designed to carry or hold propane for fueling forklifts. I haven't had any of the propane tanks stolen. I don't know if Dan has or not. Now beer kegs is the other hand. I think Dan and you guys just did a big scrap theft alert for the beer kegs out of Tampa.
Yeah.
15 or 20 of them.
They're cut them out too, try to scrap them as pieces.
That's a piece of stainless steel.
Well, and you know, a beer keg is a beer keg is a
The
beer
beer
keg.
keg, exactly.
It doesn't matter how many pieces you cut it up.
Yep. Same thing with the water pumps, the big water pumps we've dealt with in the past. Catalytic converter or any non-ferrous part of the catalytic converter unless purchased as a whole part of a motor vehicle. Metallic wire that has been burned in whole or in part removed to remove the insulation. They're pretty self-explanatory. The catalytic converters, they go for big money. Needed proof of ownership on the catalytic converter. We've had fire report for the house. If your house burned down and you're scrapping the wire, if your car burned up, burn the wire. But you see a lot of times you see with the burn wire, you'll see they'll burn the telephone wire because it's so many strands of it. That's the main wire that I've seen burned lately. Prior to I haven't seen any since this statute was enacted. Brass or bronze commercial valve fittings referred to as fire department connection and control valve, the FDC valve. That's commonly used on structures for access to for water for the purpose of extinguishing fires. I know between City of Tampa and Polk County worked a big case last year, or a year or so ago, where they recovered what 60 transactions, 70 transactions, I think.
I think we ended up with 90-something transactions over in Polk County at the scrapyard. He confessed to 97 commercial burglaries in the City of Tampa. And then he had more in Orange County, Orlando, Pinellas County, University of South Florida, St. Pete, and Wargo. Basically, when we interviewed him, he came down, we went over to Polk County, interviewed him. He told us basically the bottom line is, if there's any building in the City of Tampa more than unscrewing them and putting them in his bag. They weigh about 3 pounds apiece. We recovered, at one time, I recovered 3,900 pounds of them. So you figure how many pieces that are. And that's not even, we didn't even recover them all. So we got a lot of them back, but he's doing, we ended up, with so many jurisdictions, we got 3.5 years, 4 years out of the city of Tampa, and then they were working with statewide prosecutors to pick up the secondhand dealer, false information, and dealing with stolen property and equipment. We got another 4 years over there, so about 8 years for the young man.
All right, here's another 16 brass or bronze water, portable backflow preventers or water meters or valves. You also see, the main thing you see, these are the backflows, but in this big one on the bottom here, there's the one with the big dome on it, that's the water meter for that. It weighs about 450 pounds for the water meter on it. And that's what they're scrapping. There's a big paddle in there that weighs a couple 100 pounds that controls the water flow in there. And we've had yards that bought, I had one yard that bought 19 of them a couple of years ago before the statute was enacted. The guy worked for a fire sprinkler suppression company, but he's selling county water meters. So there should be a big difference on that. Let me correct this, give me a minute. Then you got your last four. You got shopping cart, brass water meter, which we discussed earlier, and all the water meters that we said before are serial numbered, so they're easily traceable. Your storm grates and your brass sprinkler heads, commonly used in commercial agriculture, because we've had a bunch of those were stolen in Hillsborough County in the past, and we've actually made cases on them and made arrests. Matt, you want to take over?
Just do this one, we'll take a break.
Okay. The local government regulation, the regulation of purchase transactions involving regulated metals is preempted to the state, except as provided by Section 2, an ordinance or regulation adopted by the county municipality relating to the purchase at the time of sale. Basically is, after March 1 of 2012, you can't make a more restricted county ordinance. This doesn't apply to Dade County because they have until July 1st of 2013. And their ordinance, they're working on it, and their ordinance should be, I think, ratified shortly, if I'm not mistaken on that from what I understand. And we can go take a break in 10 minutes and be back at 11:40. Oh, I'm starting this one. Regulation. Identifying the yards, it's pretty, there's a couple pretty simple ways to do it. Check with Florida Department of Revenue to obtain a list from your metal recyclers in your county. All you gotta do is contact them. They're pretty good to get along with. They'll send you through a secure email so you can download your site from your jurisdiction. Check local code enforcement guys, your local phone books. Example, using the internet, I've used that before and found them. The main thing with Florida Department of Revenue, before the statute changed in 2006, I had to subpoena Florida Department of Revenue to get the list of all the secondhand dealers and metal recyclers in my area. But we changed it in the statute and made it on both in Part 1 and Part 2 where they have to give it to you without a subpoena, because they said it was their tax ID number is what it was confidential and all that, but since we did the subpoena on it, it took care of it. Main thing was once you identify a shop, check to make sure they're registered. If they're not registered, as we said before, felony to 3rd degree if they're operating without a license. It's pretty, usually the first time I used to give them a warning, but now since it's changed to a felony, charge them with it. I mean, yes, sir?
Just one thing, because I ran into this. I gave Department of Revenue on the phone the doing business as name, like ISRI Recycling, and they told me it was not licensed. That doesn't matter. It's the official name of the corporation is the way that they search.
They have it searched because there's a couple businesses, like I have One Steel, which One Steel has, they're under, one of their yards is under Smorgon, which is the parent company, and their other name is under One Steel. So 2 different yards, one's a steel processing plant, one's the other yard. So the main thing to do to give them is give them the address, and they can pull it. If you talk to DOR, the address is the best way they do the research for it on it. And they'll give you the proper name and everything else, and once they email you the list, it works great. So if not, you got a good 3rd degree felony if they're not registered. But building relationships, this is what we talked about earlier with the scrap yards. This is why we're here today. I mean, when I was working the case, I'd go out there and make a contact for each scrap yard. You can call them anytime. They know who you are. They knew if you're working cases. I get a lot of phone calls. I've obtained fax numbers is a bit dated now, but email addresses for placing alerts for stolen property. We got scrap theft alert has come out since then. We've used the trade organizations to assist investigation. Florida Recyclers Association, ISRI, their scrap theft alert is great for working this. Build a rapport with your local yards. I go out there and talk to yards. I have about 13 in my district. We go out there, not as much as I used to, but we still go out there. They call me. They used to keep a suspicious file for us at some of the yards. We used to go in there and make cases that way. I mean, they'll give you enough work if you got a good rapport with your yard that you'll be making cases on cases every week. And a lot of times you see your scrap dealers are also the victims too. We've had multiple scrap yards that have been broken into, and we find the one scrap was marked a certain way and ended up at the scrap yard just down the road. Talking this is a little bit, but this is about the investigations. Need to start the case. Hopefully, like our office, our cases are usually assigned to us within 1 day. So that's the main thing. Notify your patrol guys if you're having a common theft of the metal in the area, or if you're having appliance thefts, because we're getting a lot of those because they're just scrapping the appliances. They steal the metal so they can sell it, so it'll show up. It's just a matter of time into what yard. The stolen metal is normally sold within 24 to 48 hours of the theft. The key thing is, it's just not copper wire. You need to know what was stolen. Size, type, if it's insulated or bare. Obtain the color insulation as sample pieces as possible. Like we said earlier, you can match it up to your wire if you find the casings anywhere. The same thing with the tubing. The tubing's marked. It's usually pretty good the way they mark it, and you can match it up to the cut pieces from the, if they were taking it from a house. Obtain a sample of the material or photograph some items. A lot of times there'll be overspray from paint on the house, on the metals, and it can be linked back to the scene. We've also seen where certain manufacturers or certain businesses, they'll mark their property with the spray paint. They'll use a certain green spray paint, or they'll use a green and orange mix, and they'll mark their items because they've been broken into so often. Some homeowners even marking their ACRs or spraying them with a spray paint where you look at it a different way, you can see the colors on it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. A lot of times we don't have the serial numbers on this, but if you look closely at the material and the evidence left behind, you can make the case without having the serial numbers for the property. Indicators, possible indicators, copper dust, possession of telecommunication, ground equipment with copper bus bars, individuals in possession of specific stamped items without proper authority. Talk about stamped items, your bus bars, if it's owned by AT&T, it'll have 288 and a 4-digit number, which is referred to that cell site tower. And like the one in, we have one in Gibsonton, they have it marked, and they marked all their newer cell tower sites. They are marking all their bus bars. It's 288 and the 4-digit number. And if anyone knows Bob Burke with AT&T, you can call him up and he'll tell you what site number that was from. And he'll tell you if it was a break-in or not on there. You got individuals loitering near the construction sites after hours, individuals located within secure areas without proper authority. This gentleman here is,
This gentleman, I just did a random stop at one of our yards, and as you can tell, he's got a truckload of extension cords. As it turns out, all these power cords actually came from this location. He went in that night. Apparently somebody left the door unlocked, so he loaded up his truck, brought everything over into our county because he called around to make sure he got the best price, and then brought it over there. He was more than willing to give me his name and all the information and whatnot. From the burned indentation on the actual box, we were able to figure out through the internet that it's an electrical company. That backtracked us to here, and as about half an hour after we were in the middle of this thing, they were making the report to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and we were able to go ahead and arrest him and seize his truck. So, yeah.
Enforcement, I mean, we've identified your suspects. It's great since we're with electronic reporting. That's a wonderful thing. You can identify a lot of your targets in there because you'll see what they're selling is multiple and hundreds and thousands of pounds sometimes. Conduct surveillance in the yards, undercover operations, reverse stings if necessary with a metal recycler. If you have a scrap dealer with a problem, there's a statutes to put them in check. A lot of them. Talk about burn sites where a lot of these people, now since it's a restricted regulated, but they used to burn a lot of metal, they still burn some of it.
You can see we flew aerial over this one gentleman's house. We put him in prison for, he was burning it right in his backyard. And if you notice in the picture, he was using his fence to start the fire because he's missing about 3/4 of his fence in the picture. He was taking down the wooden fence and using it to burn the, start the fire to burn his burn the insulation off. A lot of times you got these abandoned properties. This is a property in Gibsonton. They had a, you couldn't see from the pictures, but they were stripping the casings off the wire here from the carnival industry. They were ripping off the carnival leads to power the rides. They were stripping it and leaving it here. Also, they had a hole dug about 5 feet deep where they were just dumping the copper into the insulated wire and burning it off. The other thing is the secondary metal recycler saturations. This is a great tool we've used at our agency, especially in our district. And we've set up, we've gotten with the yards. The yards are very cooperative. We'll put a couple guys undercover in the yards calling out tag numbers and looking at what suspicious items they're bringing in there. The last time we did it, we ended up with 8 to 10 arrests. It might have not been for stolen copper wire, but it was usually for traffic arrests, warrants, drugs, and arrest duty investigations. I mean, if you got a good rapport with the yard, they'll let you come in there, put 2 guys in there, put the hard hat on, they'll be walking around, get their tag numbers and start calling out to the people there. I don't know if anyone tried doing this before, working with the yards on going in there and doing this. I know Hillsborough County has, so. Preparation for stolen cable reselling, it's usually coiled or cut into sections, the sheathing and the outer skins removed from the cable. Materials have been burned or stripped. Usually you'll see it being stripped now more than burned. And the plastic sheathing also, some people, I haven't seen a recycling value on it, but I know there's value in the plastic sheathing on some of these items. And of course we got Gary of the Scrap Theft Alert.
I hope this will work. Good morning. My name is Gary Bush, and I'm ISRI's Law Enforcement Liaison and Director of Material Theft Prevention. And I know a lot of you in here. I've worked with some of you in here, and I'm former law enforcement in Florida for over 30 years. My last agency was Marion County Sheriff's Office. Last couple of years there, and I certainly did not ask for it. I was anointed the metal theft guru because the area I was working was just getting killed with material theft. And I've been with ISRI for almost 5 years. Up until when I started with ISRI, some of my law enforcement colleagues, they accused me of going over to the dark side. However, I've been able to do some good work working with law enforcement and recyclers around the country. I mean, we took the message that you're getting here today and we can take it nationwide, and that's why we're here today. Now, this has been mentioned a couple of times about Scrap Theft Alert. How many people in here are signed up for Scrap Theft Alert? How many people have issued alerts? How many's got any success stories from scrap theft? Who has no idea what the hell I'm talking about? What? Okay, well, essentially Scrap Theft Alert, for those of you that don't know, is a system provided by the recycling industry.
Free.
Yeah, I think it's free.
There you go.
Provided for law enforcement, the recyclers, and any other stakeholders, which includes the railroads, power companies, utilities, et cetera, et cetera. It's free and open to anybody. And essentially what it does, if you are investigating a theft, you can go on the site and log in with a password that's exclusive to you, enter the information in, it only takes a couple of minutes, and then that information or this report will be broadcast to every registered recycler, law enforcement officer, and any other stakeholder within a 100-mile radius of the theft. Depending on the type of theft it is or the circumstances, we can increase the radius up to 150, 200, 300, 500. And I can tell you, depending on which part of the country you're in, say Ohio, Pennsylvania, something like that, if you do a 200-mile radius, you're talking 2,000 recipients. Try to do that on the telephone. Unfortunately, when I was investigating metal thefts myself, Scrap Theft Alert did not exist. So what we're going to do, all right, this is more complicated than a toothpick, so to advance it. I can figure that out. Thank you. All right, it is more complicated than a toothpick. I'm just going to show you some screenshots of Scrap Theft Alert. And the location is www.scraptheftalert.com. And I'm just going to show you a few screenshots of the system. I'll mention again, this is free for everybody. It's easy to use, especially once you get used to it. I mean, you can do it quickly. Covers all 50 states and Canada. In fact, I'm going to give you a few numbers, and they include Canada as well as the U.S. Canadian law enforcement officers, they love it. Although you might transmit something for a 100-mile radius and get like 2 people, so we increase the radius in that area. You can do queries. You can upload up to 4 photographs with your alert, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. You go to the page. If you have not registered, you'll log in first-time user, and at that point you'll have the opportunity to register. There's a drop-down screen. You select law enforcement officer. You'll select that you want to receive alerts, because in addition to posting alerts, you're going to start receiving alerts just from your region. As an example, unless it's a nationwide alert, you're not going to be getting alerts from Wisconsin. You're just going to be getting them from this region. And you, again, just self-explanatory, you fill in the information. And just a few facts. Now this screen, I made this slide a couple of weeks ago, so the numbers literally change hourly, so it's a little bit outdated. But it came online in mid-December 2008. There are currently over 16,222 registrants in the U.S. and Canada. That's probably 16.4 by now. 6,464 law enforcement security people signed up for Scrap Theft Alert. That's actually almost 6,600 now. 11,154 alerts have been issued, U.S. and Canada. And just to see how it's progressed, 643 issued in 2009, 2013 and 2010, 3,674 in 2011, 3,935 in 2012, and 791 alerts through 3/25 of this year. And probably we're going to wind up having a few hundred more in 2013 as we did in 2012, so it keeps getting more and more usage. And the system does work. These numbers are definitely outdated. Confirmed success stories are 149, and that's just 2011, 2012, 2013 so far. Number of arrests is actually 231 arrests or warrants issued, and this is based strictly on Scrap Theft Alert success stories that people have sent back to us. Property recovered is actually $1,304,720 so far. And since I've been here in Orlando for the past few days, I've gotten another batch of success stories that I haven't even looked at yet. And in fact, I got 2 more this morning as we've been sitting here in this class, so I haven't looked at. So the numbers are a little bit higher than that. So the system does work. It does work. You just have to use it. Just a few Florida statistics, which I will say that Florida is the state that has the most law enforcement officers signed up. Florida is the state that has the most theft alerts issued, and Florida has the 2nd most success stories. Michigan beat us out. Michigan got 3 more success stories, but Michigan is running a close second to all these numbers. 1,182 registered users in the state of Florida. Those numbers are up a little bit. This slide is a couple of weeks old. 1,107 theft alerts issued in Florida. Again, that number is a little higher. 655 registered law enforcement officers in Florida, and actually that's about 660. And I just noticed this morning that should be Florida, not Virginia, but number of success stories 14. I think Michigan's got 17 success stories. And you know, does it work? Yes, it does. And I just put a couple of success stories up here. And I put this one up here from Portsmouth, Rhode Island. And this was some, it was an area up on the water. and a boat manufacturer, and they had some material taken valued at $20,000. The victim contacted law enforcement, they made the report, and the victim actually issued the theft alert. 45 minutes later, the submitter and the law enforcement got a call from a recycler who had gotten the alert and said, I think we got your stuff. And one thing led to another. They ended up making 2 arrests, recovered all the property intact, and it was a brother and sister. So they got hooked up and went away. This one happened to be from Ocala, Florida. The reason I use this one, this was a theft that happened in Ocala, and the Ocala Marion SO, they issued a theft alert, and the property was recovered in southern Hillsborough County, 89 miles away. So what the purpose of this is this material travels. It does travel. The default radius is a 100-mile radius, but even still, this was, you know, a 100-mile radius, and 89 miles away, somebody found it. So your material, no matter where it's taken, it moves. Because obviously the bad guys say, well, if I take it 1 or 2 counties over, nobody's going to know. So, and this was in Fort Meade, one of your co-workers, Jeff, and let's see, this particular, yeah, okay. The following day, they ended up doing a traffic stop, and the bad guy, or the person they did the material on, had the material in his possession. Somebody had gotten the theft alert. One thing led to another. They wound up arresting the guy, recovering the property. And just another interesting thing I want to point out, many times on the success stories, it does not involve a scrapyard at all, because it never makes it to the scrapyard, but it does involve law enforcement. As an example, I mean, you might have a theft in your jurisdiction, but you don't know what's going on 2 counties over. I mean, that's one thing. Sadly, a lot of cases law enforcement does not communicate with each other, you know, several counties over. But I've had several cases in which an officer in this jurisdiction issued a theft alert. 2 counties over, another officer says, wait a second, I know this stuff, or I know this guy, or I found this stuff, or I saw this stuff. And the two investigators get together, case solved, and it never even made it to the scrapyard. That's happened on numerous occasions. But I just wanted to highlight, that's just a couple of success stories. I mean, I just got one a week or so ago, and I don't even recall exactly what it was, but it was almost $500,000 worth of material. And it was they did a theft alert on it, and because of the amount of the material, we expanded the radius on it, and it was recovered intact, almost $500,000 worth of stuff. So it does work. And what I wanted to do is just go over a couple of tips with you for those of you that are signed up that might help you with the system a little bit. And I was just jotting down some notes while this morning. First thing to remember is the time factor. And Rose, you could probably vouch for this. The sooner we can get an alert in the system, the better it is for the recyclers, the better chance you're going to have of recovering your material. Time is a big factor. You know, a uniformed officer on patrol that has an MDT can sit in the front seat of their car on scene and issue a theft alert right there on the spot. It only just takes a couple minutes, and that information is out. So remember that time. Secondly, use photos as much as possible. I mean, if you have photos of similar material, you know the old saying, photo speaks 1,000 words, that is correct, especially for the scrap yards. You can describe it, and you know, I'm sure there's some supervisors out there. Have you ever approved some of the reports and you see some of the material and some of the description is less than great? Well, see, everything that you put in there is going to go to the scrap yard. So keep this in mind when you're you know, use your photos if you have them of similar materials, and be descriptive, because think about this for a second. If you're putting information in your alert, your theft alert, could you recognize your material in a scrapyard based on the information you put in your alert? You know, so as descriptive as possible. You know, obviously a 20-foot piece of copper wire from 2 weeks ago isn't going to do a whole lot of good for much of anybody, but just try to be as descriptive as possible. When you're uploading your photos, just another little tip. Remember, less than 2 megs each, JPEG format. And if you're, I don't know, whichever file you're getting your photo from that you're going to upload, sometimes the computer assigns it a name if you haven't already named it, and it's got all this gobbledygook. The easiest thing, just photo 1, photo 2, photo 3. Don't use periods, exclamation points, or pound signs or anything else because the system will kick it back. But then you can still upload your photos and just keep it as simple as possible. Just something else to be aware of, and this doesn't really apply to the law enforcement so much, but the non-law enforcement people that do issue theft alerts, and we tell them, before an alert will be broadcast, it has to have been reported to law enforcement. If they just send an alert but it hasn't been reported, we won't send it out, only because law enforcement needs to be kept in the loop. You don't want angry people going over to recyclers and demanding their stuff or this or that. Law enforcement has to be kept in the loop. So, if you're talking to your victims, if they decide they want to do an alert or whatever, but that's what I tell them, it has to be reported to law enforcement. Another tip, as you're doing your theft alert, and I see this a lot from the law enforcement side, if you don't really need to, don't put your victims' names in there or your victim businesses, because, it's going out to whoever would read it, and maybe that information really is, they don't need to know who your victim is. Not unless it's something pertinent to the case, but leave your victims out of there. Just the material is what we're looking at. And this is a big one, and hopefully something might be able to do something about it at a later time. As you're doing your alerts, there's a lot of officers, and I understand why, because I would have liked to have done it, but they would like to use the alert system to run a check on somebody. Joe Smith, white male, DOB, whatever. All recyclers, please check your records. He might be a suspect or a person of interest or something like that. Normally that would be great. As a law enforcement officer, you can transmit or do pretty much whatever you want to as far as information about anybody. Nobody's going to give you a hassle about it. And as I learned the hard way on a couple of occasions, on the corporate side, you can get sued. And especially since this system is open to everybody to look at, you can actually go and Google alerts and pull them up. So any alert that comes in, we ask that nobody includes any arrestees' names, suspect names, or person of interest, no proper names at all. I can get away with a license plate because that's not readily available to the general public. Might be able to slide by with a DL number or something like that. I can certainly do a physical, vehicle description, clothing description, anything like that. Do not put a booking photo on there. I've gotten quite a few booking photos. Surveillance photos, I'd have to see it. If it's a surveillance photo of somebody right here, because again, obviously, I'm sure everybody that all of you have ever arrested, they're all innocent. And, and there might be a few cases in which somebody has been mentioned on there that they might really be innocent, hard though it might be. And, yeah, they can turn around and sue. So just try to keep those out. I mentioned the radius of the alerts. Depending on the type of alert it is, again, the default radius is 100 miles, but if you have an exceptionally large theft, a large monetary amount, or if it's something that's easily identifiable, like boat propellers or something, that is going to be very easily identifiable. There's a place at the bottom as you're entering your alert information, special handling box. You can check that and put a little notation there. I request that this be increased to 200 miles, 250 miles, 300 miles, or what have you. I've done several statewide alerts, and I think I've done one nationwide alert. And I did one for all of Canada, if it's requested. But again, it depends on what it is and so forth, and we'll go from there. Let's see. Oh, and I just want to, we were talking about success stories, and this one was kind of interesting, talking about the radius. Just probably 3 weeks ago or so, I got a success story in from late last year in a small town in Pennsylvania. They had in the country, they had a little small rural church, and they had a pretty good sized church bell. They had been there since 1857. It was a brass church bell. It was engraved with the church's name and so forth. Yeah, pretty easily identifiable. And again, this was like in the sticks in Pennsylvania, in the middle of nowhere. The church signed up for, I mean, they had reported to law enforcement, but they signed up for and issued a theft alert and included a couple of photographs of the bell. Well, obviously that's easily identifiable, and I saw that alert and I'm like, okay, I could identify that. You know, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I increased the radius on that one to, I think, 300 miles. Well, that particular alert from Pennsylvania went into Ohio. The day after the alert went out, there was a recycler in Ohio who had gotten the alert, and, you know, sure enough, you know, 3 fine, upstanding citizens brought in this big church bell on the back of an old beat-up station wagon. Well, they had already seen the alert, and they had it posted out at the intake there for the buying, and they ended up holding the guys there while they called their local police. And they're talking to the guy, well, you know, we'll take it, but, you know, we need to get some of our brother in here to come over and sign the check, and et cetera, et cetera. Local police came in from another entrance and were waiting in an office. And they said, okay, we're here, come on in. We can hook you up with your check and everything. They walked in there, and the local police are sitting right there in the next office waiting for them. So the bell was only worth about $2,000, but to the church it was priceless. So they made the arrest. Took the guy's car, got the bell back. The church got their bell back the next day, and it actually ended up on local TV, I think out of Pittsburgh, about it. So just another good success story, but it only works if you use it. And what I'd like to do today, for those of you who are not signed up, when the session is over, if you'll get with me, give me your business card. And what I want you to do is, you know, make sure you got your name and agency and all that, phone number and email address. Right on the back, if you want to sign up, what you would like to use as a password, and when I get back to my office on Tuesday, I'll sign you up. I'll take care of it myself, and I'll get you signed up. You'll start receiving alerts. The object is to get as many people, actually in all states, many law enforcement officers signed up as possible. And also, I'll give you one of my cards, and if you have any questions, I travel quite a bit, but you can always reach me by email, or my office is actually up in Ocala. I have a little office there. If I happen not to be in, you can shoot me an email. If you have any questions or you need assistance with a system, I'll be glad to help you. If you can't, you know, have problems with photos or whatever, I'll help you out. Does anybody have any questions? Yes? Thank you, and actually it's right here on my notes. There is an entirely brand new scrap theft alert system that's on the drawing boards right now. It's going to be a brand new system built from the ground up. And I guess they're taking final bids on it now. And we're hoping that it's going to be up and running in early 2014. Now with the new system, it's going to be able to be expanded a lot more than what the current system is. We're going to add like a law enforcement portal on it, so law enforcement officers only can sign in and go into this portal, and they can actually communicate with each other. And, you know, so recyclers and the general public won't have access to that. The system will be cleaner, more efficient, easier to use, and like I said, it's going to be built brand new from the ground up, and it's going to be tweakable. So as we're implementing the system, if we need to change something or we get some suggestions in or something like that, we can make those changes on it. So it's just something to look forward to. And one of the biggest things, as an example, and this is for some of the corporate people that have interest in various states, they would like to be able to get alerts from numerous locations. And that's going to be incorporated into the new system. And as it starts coming online, you know, we're going to be open to any input, anything that we can do to make it easier for you guys and easier for the recyclers. So we're very excited about that. I mean, the new system still works fine. I mean, the old system still works fine. But it's going to be a bigger system, and we'll be able to be linked in with, you know, some of the fusion centers and you know, with the FBI and things like that. So we're pretty excited about that. Questions, comments? Yes, sir?
I remember a little while back trying to register, the format was on.
Yeah, this is something, I didn't build the system. Like I said before, it's more complicated than a toothpick. I have issues. But what happens is when you're trying to register, when you put in your zip code, and then you go down, you drop down to put in your affiliation, law enforcement officer or what have you, down at the bottom, the city and the state and all that is self-populating. It fills itself in and then kind of disappears, or at least grays out. And sometimes a lot of people, they either don't see that or it just messes them up. But if you try to register, if you have a problem, I can get you registered. That's no big deal. But that's what it is. It self-populates, and sometimes that screws some people up. Anybody else? Well, for those of you using the system, I want to thank you for using it. Continue to use it. Like I said, Florida is leading the charge in the country. And up until recently, actually, Florida had the one agency that had the most officers from one agency signed up, which was Jacksonville, SO. And just a few months ago, a county out in New Mexico beat us out. They've got like 80 officers signed up from their agency. But again, please give me your card when the session is over with what you want as a password. I'll give you one of my cards, and I'll get you signed up, and let's do it. Thanks a lot. There we go.
Time is quickly running out for everything today, and it's getting closer to lunch break and everything else, so we're fixing to step on the gas and just move right along. We're going to go over some of this stuff here. You're going to have examples of enforcement. You're all senior detectives and everything else. I don't need to sit there and tell you that doing enforcement here is just like however you want to do it. If you want to sit in a tree, if you want to hide across the street, if you want to get inside the building, let your imagination run wild. This is all material that's been recovered through surveillance when we sat there watching people coming in with the wrapper, the serial numbers and everything else still on this equipment. This is one thing we are going to say, obviously, great surveillance picture in the state of Florida. Unless you've got soda cans, beer cans, aluminum cans, that is the only thing you can deliver to a scrapyard and still sell it on a bicycle. Anything else has to come into on a vehicle. Okay.